Okay. Good evening and welcome to the July 16th, no,
16.
18th.
18th.
I have the wrong date on the agenda.
Oh, you do?
The
Okay,
July
that's what I'm looking
18th,
at.
2024 Heritage Commission meeting. Call the meeting to order. Could we all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Okay, we'll have a roll call, starting with Carl.
Carl Frank, present.
Corey Flint, alternate member, present.
Okay, Marion Colby, chairman.
Stephen Callowell, member.
Gail Barringer, member.
Okay, thanks everybody for coming. Do I have the a correction on the agenda? I've had the wrong date. And are there any other requests for additions or deletions to the agenda tonight? Everybody's okay? Okay. So we're going to open up for public input, and
Do we need to approve the minutes from last month?
did I put that in here? Oh, I did.
Okay.
Yes, okay. I'm sorry. I skipped an item here. Approval of the minutes from the May 2024 meeting.
It's here.
No, but I didn't read it. I was going to
Oh,
public
okay.
input. Sorry. So have we all had
I'll
a...
make a motion to approve.
Okay, I have one comment about the minutes. Does anybody, let me see, on page... On the third page, under letter H, alternate members for the commission. The Heritage Commission can have it's 5 members, including a selectman's representative, okay? Not in addition to a selectman's rep. And then 5 alternates. Okay, that's all. That was anybody else have any?
No, just one correction.
Okay.
Hess Conway's misspelled.
On the agenda?
John, that's not gonna sit well with John.
On the agenda?
P-A-S-S-A.
Oh, I apologize for that, too. Obviously,
Apology accepted.
I was in a bit of a rush doing the
Okay.
agenda, but it's okay. There's nothing in the minutes that we need to
Okay.
adjust.
No, no,
Correct?
no, no.
Okay. Okay. Carl made a motion that we approve the minutes.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, so 4-0-0. Minutes are approved. Okay. Now moving along to item 6, public input. Seeing no members of the public present, then we'll close it for public input. If anybody comes in later, we could include them.
Is John not a member of the public?
He's number 7.
Okay.
He has his own line item on the agenda.
Just double
Report
checking.
on New
Just
Hampshire
double checking.
Historical Highway Marker at Passaconaway Site by John Croce. Mr.
You've
Croce.
You've arrived when you have your own.
Yes,
line
you have,
item.
you
Yes,
have
yeah.
arrived, you have your own line item on the agenda.
Not with the unwashed masses of.
So would you like to come up and chat with us? Thank you.
Thank you.
I even gave you an ad on the Facebook page, but I see we didn't draw in a lot more members, a lot more citizens to
Well,
hear
they're
this.
watching on
but-
television.
Oh, they're probably all watching it on television.
Eddie is.
Well, good, we have one viewer. Now, we might have a couple.
Do I need to do something with this?
Yep.
I think it's all
Everything's
set.
It's all set. Okay. All right, well, thank you for having me back. I feel odd in talking to you all because you all grew up here or know all this stuff, and so I probably have things to tell you that you could have told me. I'm feeling I'm kind of catching up to Steve Kalawa.
No.
Callaway.
Okay.
But John, I'll just point out that in case anybody goes back to look at our meeting online or is watching, that it probably is information they don't have, so please share it with us, and maybe everybody up here doesn't know it either.
And I didn't grow up here, so.
And he didn't grow up here, so help us out, yes.
Okay, good point.
Give us all you got.
So to remind you, when we first came to talk with you, it was about what we called a land acknowledgement. I became aware that I'd lived here for about 10 years by that point, but 14 now, that there was very little evidence that Native Americans had ever lived here besides a golf course called Passaconaway and a street called Natticook and some other street names. Other than that, there didn't seem to be very much in the way of recognition that Native Americans had lived here. And so in many places across the country, institutions are making land acknowledgements. They can be statements that are, well, presented at a meeting, like would have been presented just before this, at the beginning of this meeting, just acknowledging that Native Americans had lived here for a number of years, thousands of years. It could be something that's written down on a log, on a poster, a sign or somewhere, kind of like what you have down in the center of Litchfield, just acknowledging that Native Americans have been here for a long time. Sometimes some communities are actually giving land back to groups of Native Americans. Stephen and I talked about that, but we couldn't figure out who it might go to. Although the voter registration says that about 25 or so Native Americans are in town, but we don't really know who or where they are. So anyhow, land acknowledgement was one thought. Another thought that came up, and this was primarily from Steve, was that there are a couple of islands in the Merrimack River that Passaconaway used to live on at some point. And so we started doing some research, and I've been doing a lot in Concord, online to Boston, and trying to find out who this guy Passaconaway was. And I found out there are several historians who have talked about him. The problem is that they may have each consulted each other, and what they've come up with, they're just kind of quoting each other about who this guy was. But there are some people who actually saw him, like in 1623, actually saw this big, tall, over 6 foot, over 200-pound Native American standing on a cliff, and surmised that that was probably Passaconaway. He was noted among Native Americans as being huge and an incredible warrior. And he was actually kind of a founder of a huge confederation of 12 or more different tribes. And he became known as the Bashaba. I'm not sure how that's pronounced, maybe Bashaba or Bashaba, but some of the historians said this is kind of akin to being emperor in our language. Anyhow, he was quite a man. He was noted for magic. He could apparently turn water into fire, turn dead leaves into green leaves. He could swim underwater across the Merrimack River, showing up on the other side of the bank with nobody knowing how he got there. He was just noted among not only Native Americans, but also colonists, settlers, for having done these amazing things. In fact, according to him, he himself, he was called down to Plymouth in 1620 to make the white settlers go away. He and some other Sachems were called. And he apparently, according to something he said in a speech down in what's now Lowell, he said that he went there, he tried 3 different things that would make them go away, a huge storm that never appeared, 2 other things, they all failed. He wasn't able to make them leave. And then, according to him, the Great Spirit spoke to him, whispered to him, and said, "These white people are too numerous and too powerful. You can't make them go away. You should only use peace with them." And according to settlers at the time, and historians since, there was never any fighting or killing during his rule, any fighting or killing with white people. He had a son, Wanalancet, and a grandson, Kangamangas, who basically carried through some of the same policies. But he turned out to be very peaceful towards whites. In 1623, he was among the very first Native Americans to cede or lease or sell land to the white settlers. I couldn't figure out if he offered it initially or if they requested it or if it took a process to make it happen. What I've kind of figured out is that he and others were probably doing this to create a buffer against the enemy New York Mohawks, who were very vicious and whom he had a lot of fighting with. He claimed that he had lots of Mohawk scalps at where he lived. There were also Maine Native Americans who would come down and try to take things from the New Hampshire area tribes. So it may have been to set up this buffer by using white settlers who would be in between the Penacooks and the enemies, or it may have been for some other reason. But in fact, and maybe, Steve, you have this. This is the treaty he signed with his mark and signature.
My goodness.
Wow.
You have it?
No.
No. This is the actual treaty, which I will give to you. I got it for free.
In exchange for land?
You got it. And it's fascinating and not really easy to read, but it clearly says that this land, essentially from what was Massachusetts up to, how far, Steve?
I'm not
The
sure what you're
land that he
referring
was
to.
giving, all the
This
way
area, the area.
from,
That he was granted?
that he was granting.
Granting.
Oh, that he was granted.
He was granting.
Gee, I'm not sure I think it ran from the coast. I'm not even sure how far inland, but it was a massive amount of land.
From the coast to the Merrimack, and from Massachusetts, and I don't know if that was that farm owned by that guy in Rhode Island, or if that was how far up that went, but it was essentially all of southern New Hampshire.
Right.
That went to the white settlers.
And what year was that, John?
1623,
1620.
May 17th. Maybe that's the old calendar, I'm not sure how that works.
Yeah.
So he then spent a good 10 years or more counseling peace among whites, according to these historians that I've read. It seems to me that a number of the historians may have kind of heroized him, maybe said really good things about him, like this guy who said that he saw him in 1623, and the quote was, let me see if I can find that, in 1623 kind of jives with this grant of land, but he says, equally and mentally superior physically to any man in the colonies. This was Captain Christopher Lovett. It's interesting that it's the same year that he gave them all the land,
Yeah.
but he did. And he was by many white settlers, and of course, very much among the Native Americans, seen as a very important, powerful orator and counselor of peace. And that worked out well, because it wasn't too long after he died that the King Philip War happened, and it was partly in this area. So anyhow, I thought you'd be interested in that. I don't know if I also found some things that were deeds for the granting of land to the Litchfield first town office.
Yes. Martha Church?
Yes.
Yeah.
A widow.
Yes.
Right, yeah. So I copied some of that stuff. I don't know if you need that. But anyhow, that's what I found out about Passaconaway. So it was kind of unfortunate that he gave all this land, because it was his land or the tribe's land to use, and they used it for off and on, but gradually pieces got sold, bought by whites, and eventually, in the early 1660s, as he was getting close to dying, and by the way, he lived to possibly 120, maybe 110, some maybe said just 100. He lived a long time. He,
No PFOAs in the water.
Right.
what? No,
No PFOAs in the water.
they were farther down.
No
Right.
chemical additives.
No, there were not. He gave a speech down where Lowell is now, where a big encampment was. And in the speech, he talked about how he had been down in Plymouth. I couldn't find any other evidence of that, and I wrote to Plymouth Plantation asking for information, and they said, we can give you an answer maybe in 10 weeks. So I wouldn't have it for you. But I can't find any other evidence of it besides him saying this in this one speech later in his life. But maybe he did go, whatever, what he took from it was peace with whites. That's what he counseled. In this speech, he talked about many of the things that he could do, had done, what he was known for. But he also asked for land. He asked for a place for himself. And he wrote out a deed, or somebody wrote a deed for him around that time to the Massachusetts court, asking for some land where he could plant some plants and corn, I guess, basically. And there's a letter that we have back. We have the deed, and the deed, there's an order from the court telling that this land should be given to him, that it would be starting at the Sauhegan River and go north to the greater Cohos Brook, a mile and a half on each side of the river. So here's the river, a mile and a half this way, a mile and a half this way, and 3 miles from the Sauhegan up to the brook. You can barely make out the brook now going into the river. But you can clearly see the Sauhegan River. And there's a bridge going across the river as it comes in. It's got graffiti on it. But the bridge, that place is the beginning of the deed. And I walked over wanting to see it the other day. I hadn't been on Natticook Road at all. I went back and I thought maybe I should knock on a door. So I did, and a guy came out. Turns out he was a veterinarian
Jim Herman.
who saved Stephen's cat from
Whitey.
cancer.
Oh, Whitey. Yeah.
Whitey, yes.
Turned out to be a really good guy. Told me he had just, a year or two ago, ridden his bike 90 miles from Portland, Oregon to Portland, Maine in 40 days. Stopped at my hometown, Rapid City, South Dakota, on the way. He took me back to where I could see the Sauhegan River coming in. I took some pictures of it. He didn't know anything about Passaconaway, but he lives right on the edge of the deed. The next house over is part of that deed, probably. So we have the deed, and it goes all the way up. It specifies exactly what should happen. The two surveyors were Danforth and Parker, not your Parker, apparently. Is that right?
No, not our
I don't know, I don't
No.
think so.
Jonathan
No.
Parker?
No.
So they said that they had laid out this land, and it included 2 islands about a mile north of the Sauhegan River where it enters the Merrimack. So Stephen has told me where it was. I've gone to see it. You've been there, I think, right?
Yes.
And things have been found there, apparently.
Yes, they used to, some of the amateurs who collected Indian artifacts always would go on the islands and did find things. Hurley found pieces of pottery, some beads, besides implements, hide scrapers and arrowheads and axe heads and those sorts of things.
Amazing.
Yeah.
There's no evidence of anybody else having been there, but probably there were others. And I don't know if anybody goes there now.
You've been on the islands.
Oh,
haven't you?
yes, yeah.
Oh, yeah?
It's directly across from our house.
Right, yeah.
Yes.
I went back in that field and I saw it. So it's quite amazing. And so it's mentioned in the deed, I don't know if it's mentioned in the deed, but the surveyors mentioned that they included these two islands, the names of which are Minnewawa and Nunahaha. Does that sound right? Which Stephen dug up for us.
I'd have to spell those out.
What?
I might need the spelling of those.
I've got it written down.
Matt may need the spelling.
I think Matt might need the spelling for the minutes for that. I never heard those names before, that's
Yeah,
interesting.
I don't know where Stephen dug them up, but anyhow, so the two islands have these names, and we've found some letters, some information actually citing that he had lived there for a long time and planted things there for a long time. So we've also found things that said he was there for a short time, but we did find something that contradicts that. So.
But the short time may too, John, refer to the fact that we grew up hearing that he summered on these islands,
Ah,
that he wasn't there year-round, he
Seasonally.
summered here.
right, that's right. So, yeah, in some places I just saw that short thing and I thought, no, we got to go deeper than that. So I kept looking at the footnotes and where did that come from? And that's where I found these different historians.
In your
Cite each other.
research, did you find anything that would indicate, as we have found down by the Old Town Hall, that the river took some of the land away? I'm wondering, I guess to put it simply, if the islands were bigger than they are now or about the same size.
I don't think so, Gail, because I think the majority of the land lost was much further south. In fact, the town's residents in the early days petitioned the state of New Hampshire to try to get a levee built to alter the course of the river because it was washing away that town center,
Right.
but there was no evidence that it had washed away any other part of town. It's just the way the currents happened to hit that part.
Right, yeah, the curves and the currents and all that. Yeah, and now I did talk to your veterinarian, Jim
Herman.
Herman. He told me, because I had, when you look at the map of it, the island seems to have, the big island seems to have it's partly split by water. It's, and so I asked him about it, and he said that that's seasonal. That
Yeah.
sometimes it's all land, and sometimes there's water in there.
Right.
But no, I wasn't looking at that. I was aware of it. I saw the archaeologist digging a year ago. Was it a year ago, I think? And then heard about more of it this year.
We used to think when we were children that Passaconaway may have grown corn on our side of the river, and that may just have been a family tale,
No, I'm sure he did.
but
Yes, because it was in that 40-acre vicinity
Mhm.
of the islands that he grew his vegetables.
well,
That's
then
right,
my
and it says-
grandmother was probably telling us a
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tail.
it says on the east side of the river, 40 acres
40 acres.
Well, there
that he
you
was
go.
growing corn on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was yours,
And that's where we live,
right?
right there.
Yeah. So you've got a lot of this history right there among you. And so the idea that Stephen had was that we could maybe get a historic marker, the metal,
State marker.
the state
Yeah,
markers.
state marker.
And I've looked at the requirements for it. There are certain things you have to certify. You've got to be able to find evidence of things. And that's why I wasn't too happy just with the initial things I was finding. I thought there must be more. We have to be able to find the proof. And I think we've got most of it. What we're missing right now are maps. The surveyors drew maps. We can't find them. I've been in touch with, who was I in touch with, Steve? In Boston? The archives.
Massachusetts Archives.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. They wrote back and gave us a list of several, but none of the plans that they cited are the correct year.
And what about Middlesex County?
Haven't gone to that yet.
Because this would have all been in Middlesex County in colonial times. So there may be something there.
That's a good try. There was another one they mentioned too that I have to look into, but anyhow, I thought that would be really cool on one of those
Yes.
map.
Yes, yeah.
Yes.
To have that map and part of the deed written the way they wrote it back
I
then.
think in the 1729 survey that was done because of the divisions of Breton's Farm. Of course, this was a little bit north of Breton's Farm, but I think that those islands are in that survey,
17,
29.
okay. I've seen reference to that.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's the information that I've got so far. I'm still working on it. It may take a couple of years. We may be able to have it done, paid for by the state. I think I mentioned to you before that the town, they could have the town do it, but the town probably doesn't want to spend that money.
John, do you know how much money they require?
I don't remember now. It was, when I mentioned,
It's several thousand
No.
or something?
Wasn't it something like $750 or something?
no, I thought it was in the thousands.
Oh, it was in the thousands?
I thought it was,
It
but
may be now.
I don't remember now.
Okay.
I should get that, but,
I read somewhere that it was something like $2,000.
What?
I thought I kind of recalled that,
Maybe
but.
it was
pretty
in New
pricey.
Hampshire,
Yeah.
maybe.
it was pricey, but the state can do it too, and they would do it, but it may take longer, it may take a
Right.
couple of years, but this town doesn't have one, and there's only one in the entire the state that mentions Passaconaway,
Right.
and that's up in Concord.
And do you, to apply for this, does it, I mean, would it be helpful if the Heritage Commission sponsored this?
I can't imagine it wouldn't be.
Okay, because I think we could entertain a motion that we could work with you on this and, put our seal on it or whatever that we needed to do to try to push this forward as quickly as we could.
That'd be terrific.
John has spent a couple of years
Oh, you've
just
spent a lot
doing
of- done-
unbelievable amounts of research.
Just since you were here the last time, you've gotten a tremendous amount more information, which I found very interesting.
And most of that just in the last couple of months, because I got into other things. But
yeah.
now also, I should tell you, I'm not a resident of Litchfield anymore,
Right, I
but
understand.
my heart's in Litchfield.
Okay, that's all that
Yeah.
matters.
Absolutely.
We can't have you on our historical commission. It does say they have to be
We'll have a
citizens,
state
but,
marker for you.
yeah.
I am
Yeah.
passionate about this program. I think we
Good.
really have to do something.
Right,
Now,
yes.
I think we should go even farther if we can, beyond just Passaconaway, but something about the natives who lived here, who occupied the whole area.
Mm-hmm.
9, maybe 10,000 years, what you just showed me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or at
Um,
least 10,000 years.
Yeah, and, before
Like a
that,
land acknowledgement
Something
sign of some other, yeah.
I think about the things on the canal, the locks and all that, the material, the literature on that, on those posters. Something like that for the Native Americans, I think would be fabulous.
And could be put up in the kiosks
The kiosk.
at one of those sites.
We could put it up on the island and people would have to go swim out to it.
Well, Merrimack claims ownership of the islands.
Oh, the Merrimack does, right.
We're going to take it back, though.
Yeah, we have a, yeah.
And I'm not sure exactly how that happened, because they historically have been referred to as Reed's Islands.
That's right, I saw that.
And the Reeds owned from where Tim's Turf today is, all the way down to where the islands are.
Oh,
It was an enormous tract of land that they
Yeah.
owned.
Huh.
And that was part of it. Now, how those got separated out, I'm not sure.
well, he had other places that he lived. Other places were mentioned, for example, the Horseshoe Pond.
Yeah.
Which is over in Merrimack.
Right.
And most especially up at,
Amoskeag Falls?
where?
Amoskeag Falls?
Yeah, Amoskeag Falls. His place was up on the east side.
Right.
Where,
Brady Sullivan is today, a big high-rise is there.
right.
Yeah.
Initially, it became one of the governors. I can't remember his name, but he was very popular back in the 1800s, and he built his home up on top. And but that's where Passaconaway's place was.
And General Stark's little house that's now up on North Elm Street used to be right there at the falls, too. When I was growing up,
I remember
if you
that,
went
yeah.
across the bridge, you could see General Stark's house there.
Really?
Mhm.
And it was just on fire a few months ago, I think.
I hadn't heard that. But there's more than one General Stark house.
Then maybe it was another
Yeah,
one. I
this
just
is-
heard there was
yeah,
one.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's where I am and what I'm going to continue working on. But I think the next step probably is to get the form, which I can get here, and begin filling it out, seeing what more is needed. I know I could come back to Stephen, and I don't know who else might have information that we need for it. I don't know what would be needed in
We
terms of
need a-
sponsoring it, as you mentioned.
Yeah, I don't know, I mean, maybe
Either-
just to put our names on this form with you, or our commission, or,
That would be terrific. And I'm
Something
not
like
looking
that.
for any recognition on this. If this were like your deal, and I'm just supplying you with things, that would be perfect.
Well, I think that you are the chairman, or at least honorary chairman of that committee,
yeah,
John.
I need the
absolutely.
Bashaba.
There you go.
And remind me to get that picture that I have of Passaconaway out. That is so good.
Yeah, and I found out about that. That's, he's got kind of a conical
Yeah.
cap.
Yeah.
And that's something that is, like on official functions, apparently,
Yes.
not everyday wear.
Yeah.
I've tried to find what typical wear would have been, clothing would have been back there, and it's
Yeah.
kind of hard to find things. That's really the only drawing I've seen.
I think I have a colored drawing from the 1700s, but it is of King Philip, I believe.
I've got that, I saw it today.
You've seen that?
A squat little guy.
Yes, but you could, in my picture, it's colored, his clothing.
Yes.
It's quite colorful.
Yes, right. Yeah, I was looking at that today, looking for
Okay.
a picture of,
Something of native dress of that period.
right, yeah.
I'm assuming if he gave speeches that he spoke English. Did he or not? Or
I
did
would-
he have an interpreter?
I would assume that he did. Because he was a very smart man. He'd have,
There's nothing that I saw that said he spoke English. Certainly the letters that he wrote weren't his writing, and maybe they were his writing. I mean, it's not easy to read. I mean, what we've got here is his signature, and the signature is a picture, and there's the word, it's actually Passaconaway, but I've seen it in other places, Papisaconaway.
that's right.
In fact, I think it's in the court paper that was written back, it's Papisaconaway.
That's right.
And I've seen a whole bunch of different writings of it.
Mhm.
But I don't know if he actually spoke English. Good question.
Well, I was just curious, as
Yeah.
you said, he gave a
He gave a
speech
speech
in
in
Lowell.
Lowell, yeah.
and-
That was to oh, I know, okay, so I know this. It was mostly to throngs of Native Americans who came
Okay.
to see this guy who was very old and who was passing things on.
Okay.
I'm dying.
John has been down to, it's interesting to note that it's in Tingsboro, his island, his other island.
No, that's
Chelmsford?
no, that island is also a golf course, and
Right.
that's his son.
Oh, that was one of Lancett's?
That's one of
property?
Lancet's, yes,
okay.
right.
I thought that he had passed it to Wanalancet. Passaconaway had given it to Wanalancet.
I don't know, the place that it was, the big place down in Massachusetts was down where the rapids, the falls are.
Right, right.
That, there was big Indian village there, and he had a place at the top of the rapids, apparently. But, okay, the person who told what was in the speech was, I forget his name right now, but he was translating it. So it must have been given in their language.
Native tongue.
Yeah, native tongue, right.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Thank you.
good question.
Yeah, thank you.
That's all I've got for you, I think.
Well,
That was a
That's
lot.
very interesting, John,
Yes.
and that's terrific.
Yeah, that was
Good, I'm glad you liked
fantastic.
it.
But get the paperwork,
It's right here.
okay?
Yeah.
Let's get that filled
But I'd
out.
like to get that map. I think that would be so cool.
Oh,
Yes, yeah.
I made my own idea of what the map might have
Yeah.
been.
And check with Middlesex County. You can go down to the courthouse, and I know that there are extraordinarily early records there,
Middlesex County, and that's where?
Massachusetts.
But
Where's the county seat?
is it in Boston?
No, Middlesex County, it's one of the towns in Middlesex County.
One of
Look
the
it up,
towns.
yeah.
Can't we Google that, Carl?
Everybody's gonna Google it, I'm not
Everyone
that,
has the Google.
not that quick on the draw.
Middlesex County Courthouse. Let's see, there's one in Lowell,
And that we support it.
One in Lowell?
Burn.
Okay.
Oh, that's Superior Court.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got a couple in Lowell, there's one,
Site of Historic Records.
oh,
Here's where the Sauhegan comes in.
Yes.
Okay,
I have seen
yeah.
that.
oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you've seen it. And
Isn't that where Bobby and the boys got in trouble because of the current of the Sauhegan coming into the river? This is years ago, and it tipped over a small boat.
Uh-huh.
And two people, town residents, were drowned.
Yeah. Ooh,
And two survived, Kevin Lynch being one of the survivors.
Kevin Lynch?
Yeah.
Wow.
They were teenagers.
Wow.
I remember reading about that.
That would have been like in the 50s?
No,
Oh,
that
no.
was in around 1969 or 70.
Early 70s,
70,
because I was in
spring of
college.
70,
Oh.
yep, spring of 70.
So I drew this. I mean, this is clearly not right, but I mean,
Yeah.
that shows where the Sauhegan is and the Cohos
Right.
Brook.
Yeah.
Right.
And then, so it has to be a mile and a half, and I don't know how that far that is, and a mile and a half this way. And it takes in parts of, you listed them the other day,
Bedford, Amherst, Manchester,
Manchester,
Londonderry,
Londonderry too.
Litchfield, Hudson,
Merrimack.
Merrimack.
Hudson too?
Well, Hudson's lines have changed over the years.
Oh, okay.
But when it was Nottingham West, part
So
of that. would
former,
come in.
former Hudson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I measured the other day just to see, when I drove away from Jim's house, I went up to to what I thought might be Cohos Brook. And I turned on to, and I couldn't find it anywhere, and I turned on to Pine something,
Pine Island Park.
Pine Island. And that's apparently Cohos Brook.
The pond that you see there.
Yeah.
Is the source of Cohos Brook.
5.9 miles.
Right.
Not 3 miles.
Well, 17th century,
As the
Miles.
crow
the crow
flies, yeah.
flies.
Well, yeah, and I was following the road, so it's not quite
Right.
following the river.
Yeah.
But it must be something like this, only broader.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that's what a surveyor's map would
Yes,
look like.
yes.
Hey, John. Middlesex County South Registry of Deeds is in Cambridge.
That's right, it is in Cambridge, now that you say it.
But maybe online.
They might.
I mean,
have-
Oh,
I've
yeah, they
gotten,
have to be.
Possibly, yeah, I'm sure.
because I've gotten really good stuff from Boston.
But I know that your uncle, Paul Hendrick, when he was researching the Century Farm deeds here years ago, used to go into Cambridge to
Yes.
see them in person because it was before the internet and all of that sort of stuff.
Okay, could you tell me that again?
Sure. That's the Middlesex County, or Middlesex South Registry of Deeds is in Cambridge. If you go to Wikipedia for Middlesex County, Massachusetts, it's right in there.
Okay.
And there was no evidence of these maps on the old map site.
No, on the old map site, nothing. That was my first thought.
Well, thank you, Steve and Corey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
All right.
That's a good lead.
I would like to make a motion that we, the Heritage Commission, join in John's endeavor to support him and give any aid that we can in completing the task of getting a New Hampshire State Highway marker to recognize Chief Passaconaway and the Pennacook tribe who lived here.
Second, anybody?
I'll second.
Okay, and we could vote on that, and Corey, you vote as well, because you're a member tonight. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, 5-0-0.
thanks, that'll be great to see happen. And it may take some time, we gotta be patient.
Yes, yes.
This is for you.
Okay.
Good
Thank you.
Good to see you again,
Thank you very
John.
much,
Good to
John.
be back.
We really appreciate all your
Excellent
input. It's really
presentation, John.
interesting.
Thank you.
Is your wife watching this from Londonderry? No? Oh, my gosh. You become a television star and she's watching.
Thank you very much. It's
Oh, you're
really
welcome.
very appreciated,
And it's good to have you so receptive to it, too.
very.
Thank you, Joan.
It's important, thank you.
All right,
Have that other book that I gave you?
Oh, I didn't bring it.
Okay.
Okay. Good. Yep. It's right there on the dining room table with 100 other books, as you very well know.
Should have picked it up when I stopped.
John, you might be interested in the next report, which Stephen is gonna make on the archaeological study. The report came in.
Of course I would.
I didn't bring the report
No,
with
I
me,
know,
but
but
the
you-
report is in. Did you see it online, John? The Phase 2 archaeological survey,
Yeah, yeah,
you saw it online?
I guess, yeah.
Okay. Because it is online, available from the town website. And it was prepared by Matt Labey, who was in charge of the entire operation and who also authored the Phase 1 study report. And they had a very good result this time. They used ground penetrating radar. They did not find any evidence of bodies in what remains of the old graveyard. However, the people who operate the ground penetrating radar said that does not absolutely mean there are not bodies here, because we have had such tremendous flooding here and so many feet of silt built up that the bodies may be much further down than one would expect to see. And so that's still a question. Although from maps that Matt was able to find in the New Hampshire State Archives showing the loss of soil and bank in that part of town, he concludes that almost all of the graveyard is gone, which we suspected as well. It sat directly behind the old meeting house. The location of the old meeting house was found, as well as probably a dozen other buildings, ranging from a blacksmith shop to a shoe shop to a tannery to stores on the property. There was a Gale family house, a Griffin house, that is now, would be in the middle of the Merrimack River. So that's long gone. And it just uncovered a treasure trove of information. They found Native American artifacts this time, which they did not find last time. And while the research was being conducted, they were very alarmed because they were coming onto the site and they were well aware that the site was being looted as they were working on it. They could see new holes that had been dug, and they were aware that things were being removed. They photographed all of this. They included it in the report. They emphasized that absolutely no one should be allowed to do any excavation of any type on this site except for professional archaeologists for research purposes only. But amateur excavators should not be allowed on this property. And the town actually has a rule we have a map that was drawn up by the state of New Hampshire in 1983, listing all the historic sites in town. Most of them are Native American. And the ones that are on town property, no one is supposed to excavate on either. The ones that are on private property, we have no control over.
Right.
And I found the maps in the report. You said you saw the report online?
I think I did.
Yes.
This is just recently. It's been on less than a month.
No, then that seems, I think of.
You must
something-
think
You're
the last
thinking of the
one.
Phase 1 survey.
Yeah.
This is the new report.
Right, and when you have a chance to look at it, the maps are so interesting,
Yeah.
so helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in September, Matt is going to come down, probably will use the meeting room in the fire station, and he's going to give a presentation of the entire project. He's going to return all of the artifacts at that time. They'll be on display that evening for townspeople to see, and that should be a very interesting event.
When is that?
It'll be in September, Carl. We didn't schedule it for in the summer because we just thought, well, people will be on vacation, this and that and the other. It'll be better in the fall when kids are back in school, and it'll be interesting for everybody to go to. So probably early fall, in September sometime.
Please be sure I know about that.
I will make
I
sure that
just,
you
I
know
just
about
made,
it.
I just made a note to notify you when we get to that, yeah.
You're on our
Yeah,
list.
you're on the list, yeah.
Great.
Thank you, Stephen. That's very, anybody else have any questions or anything to add to Stephen's report? Okay. So our next item is the Historic District Committee initial meeting. So we're undertaking with the Litchfield Historical Society a project to explore designating a historic district in town. And we had a kickoff meeting on the 13th at the Historical Society, and we had several volunteers from the public who came forward to be part of the committee. And we will meet again in a couple of weeks, and there were some assignments for people to do a little bit of research about the other towns in the Nashua Regional Planning Commission sites to see what their historic districts look like and what kind of organization they have for theirs. And every town sets their own parameters for the historic district and can be as, maybe just designating the area. Some of them have certain, restrictions or stipulations about property use, and we will, move forward from there. So it's just a kickoff meeting. Gail and Stephen were at that. Do you guys have anything to add to that?
No, it seems that the proposed district will be run from Page Road to Robin Avenue, which is the residential section of Route 3A. South of Page Road and north of Robin Avenue are commercial sections, and so we would not have any jurisdiction there. And again, we are researching what other towns are doing. We are planning to keep ours as simple as possible and not interfere with what a person can do with their own home on their property. One of our main objectives is just to prevent a developer, for example, from buying a farm and demolishing the old buildings on the property just to put in a housing development. You can't stop a housing development from going in, but we'd like the buildings on the property to be preserved.
Right.
Because we've just lost 2 important houses in the last 2 years, and we don't want to see that happen again.
Well, the Reed House as well. And, but that was,
Yeah.
another one.
Yeah,
And then an old
great.
schoolhouse.
Right.
So, various properties have been going, and it's,
And on a positive note, I think we discussed at the first committee meeting the importance of educating folks in terms of the history incorporated in that particular section of the Charles Bancroft Highway. We have a lot of new folks, my impression at least, in Litchfield that are quite interested in the history of the town and agree that the Charles Bancroft Highway, and particularly the Old Town Center and this particular area, should be preserved as much as possible, should remain historic. So we're excited about that. And as Stephen and Marion have made clear, we're not looking to have stringent rules. We want to preserve our culture and our history.
well said, Gail.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other comments or questions about that item?
What's the width? You said, you gave the north-south, you're just talking along the highway itself?
Yes, it would probably be an acre deep, Corey. What it is trying to do is to encompass the things that old buildings are on, which are usually within an acre of the road.
Right. We won't be going up to,
We're not
we won't be
coming
going up
after
to
you.
Albuquerque.
Well,
Oh, the pink house is iconic though, so we may
Right.
have to,
We might have to declare it historic.
right, yeah.
it's
There you go.
It's
Okay,
already historic, isn't it?
Yes.
The pink house.
it's famous.
Yes.
Okay, the next item, number 10, the semi-quincentennial of USA coming up in 2026. We're forming a committee. I reached out to get citizens, and we do have a fair number that have expressed interest in it. We've decided that we'll try to hold that meeting in probably we're going to try to get the fire station community room for that, because
To record it.
to record it and also to have accessibility for people to be able to get into the meeting. And I'm going to look at the calendar and try to come up with a date in August so we can have a kickoff meeting for that. And as soon as I get find out what the free dates are, we'll work on that with the town to see if we can do that. We'll be doing that. The Heritage Commission will be working in conjunction again with the Historical Society on that. And we want to get that done so that we can get, see if there's any way that the town will vote in a little bit of funding for that, for the celebration.
Can you make sure that Amber and I are?
Yeah, well, you're on my list, yeah.
aware of the date, yeah.
Oh, you're on the list, yeah, for that committee. I'll be sending out a group thing for that. Okay, and then Economic Development Committee, I go to that and represent the Heritage Commission at that. We had a meeting this week. We're developing questions for a focus group. We have over 300 email addresses of people who took the survey at election last year who said they would be willing to participate in a focus group. I think an initial email went out and the response was alarmingly low, but perhaps more people will sign up for that. And they've chosen a date. It's going to be at Campbell High School in the cafeteria, the focus group meeting, and it will be, I think, on September 12th. So that will be an evening at 6:30 so that worker people can get there. And we're going to try to do something like, we're working on getting some businesses to donate, like perhaps like pizza or some kind of a little snack for people, so when they come, they, could just come there, and we'll break out into groups and have facilitators to ask the questions. Just trying to develop a sense of what the economic, when people said they were interested in economic development, what it means to them, what they see in their broad picture of the town, and, talk about a little bit about what, some people say, oh, we need a grocery store, but they have no idea what that entails as far as how many acres it would take and the services that would be required of the town once something like that is in.
And if the population could support it.
Well, that's it. I said, I'm sure that these businesses have, they're not going to, they must, in their master plans, they must have, parameters of where they're going to establish. Like, you're not going to have a CVS that's going to come when you have one 5 miles down the road, or, I think that would be something people should think through, but we're not going to discourage whatever their ideas are. We just want to get the ideas on paper and start working on that. Does anybody have any questions about the economic development? Okay.
My impression was, I watched the meeting, that you folks were struggling with this whole issue of a focus group and how to draw people in, and I thought you had a good discussion about that. It's certainly challenging.
Yeah.
When people hear focus group, they think, what are we
Right.
going to do there? So it'll be key for you, your group, that committee, to let folks know what you mean by focus group.
Mm-hmm.
And also,
Thank you for
I
that.
have been getting emails about focus group development. I didn't perhaps read it closely enough, but I didn't think that there was anything to respond to. And maybe.
At that point, right.
And maybe it should be directed to, you indicated that you would be interested in being part of a focus group.
Okay.
And so we're letting you know.
We're setting
that we
up a
are- right,
focus group
Rather
and-
than just
right.
informing someone there's a focus group.
Right, that was my
Right.
point.
Yeah.
And I think your point too,
Yeah.
Yeah.
as I watched the meeting. I
Right.
think you guys struggle with that.
Right,
It is a challenge,
exactly.
and it's important.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, so thank you for those points, and I'll bring that up. Do we have any new business to discuss? Does anybody have any new business to add?
No.
No? Okay. Seeing none, then we will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Second, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay, 500.
Okay. Is this?
That's the one.
Economic
Yep,
development
that's
meeting?
it, yep.
Okay.
Does it say, oh, wait a minute. let's see.
That was June.
Right, well, they're gonna
they
send
talked
out
about
one now saying, she had to find out from the school if we could use the room, and we can. She found that out